Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's
Well,
going to be a little late tonight.
we're gonna get that. We're gonna get that right, John, one of these days. I'm Patty Wary. Welcome to the 19th episode of Dinner's Gonna Be a Little Late Tonight. Well, I want to tell you guys, John might be having a hard day.
Very good. I'm Patty Wary.
Yep, still am. Everyone having the hard day today.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. All right, so today we are making some holiday appetizers, which are actually super, super easy. So it's really fun because we're going to be able to show you from start to finish how to make these appetizers like that. And they're delicious. And I've made them a million times. So yeah. And Patty, what are you making today?
I am making, I think it's 3 weeks in a row, I'm making a recipe of my mother's. And we grew up calling them Phyllo Triangles. And they're a kind of spin on a very traditional Greek dish that usually had more ingredients, but this also is another example of my mother was an excellent cook. My dad was a picky eater, so she kind of simplified it. But these are a family favorite, made them over and over and over and over and over again. And we're also, courtesy of Psalm Sydney, have some really great tips and information about sparkling wine, because this is a great time of year to enjoy sparkling wine. And maybe we'll all be toasting on New Year's Eve to saying adios, ciao to 2020s. But sparkling wine's a great option anytime. So I thought it'd be fun. Well, actually, my original thought about this was that you'd have like a little holiday cocktail party and you'd have people over and we'd be passing these wonderful appetizers and enjoying sparkling wine. But instead, you'll probably just be looking at someone on Zoom, but you can still drink. So that's the important part. And
we can do an F 2020 party.
yes.
What we've been talking about doing actually with some neighbors is everybody makes some appetizers and then you figure out how to safely share them and then have a Zoom, so that everyone has a little sampler powder and have a Zoom. That's a good idea, right?
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
That's great.
As we wait in our homes for this to be over. But yeah. So I am going to be making an asparagus tart, which I have in the cookbook, but I've even modified a little bit for today. So it's really easy. And but first let's talk about what we did last week, right? We made some delicious lamb loin chops last week with a garlic, lemon, mint vinaigrette. And they were courtesy of the chef at Purdue Farms, the corporate executive chef. And it was an amazing dish, and my family ate it afterwards, and they loved it too.
It was delicious. It was great. And we made my mom's cream spinach, and apparently John accidentally made about 5 times as much as he needed to, but he found some great alternate uses for his leftover cream spinach, which I have to honestly say there's never been leftover cream spinach in my house. But what did you do with it, John?
I made lasagna.
I love that.
And it was delicious. It was so good with that as part of the filling. And I put sausages and a tomato sauce and lasagna and the cheese. And it was really, really good. So if you ever do have any of that cream spinach left over, there's an alternative use. All right, shall we?
Baked potatoes, too. There's another hot tip. Or in omelets. I guess I have had it in omelets. All right, so John's going to do his first. This is kind of a little tricky timing thing, and that's a tricky thing with cooking, right, is timing. So we're having a little timing challenge today, but we think we've got it. John's going to do his first. While his is in the oven, I'll do mine. Then we'll talk wine.
So I'm making asparagus tart, and it is the easiest thing ever. I'm using Pepperidge Farms puff pastry sheets that you buy in the freezer section at the store, because this is the easiest shortcut ever. And they come in these little packages, and it ends up looking like this. It almost looks like pie crust, but not.
Rectangular pie crust.
So it looks like this. So I've got my rolling pin, and we're going to make this puff pastry dough first, because that's the basis for this tart. And this tart is super easy. It's this puff pastry dough, asparagus, Swiss cheese, olive oil, garlic. That's it. That's it. The easiest thing ever. So I don't know about you, but I always put flour down when I'm gonna do this, so it doesn't stick to the table. I've got this wood butcher block table in my kitchen, which is really great and I use it all the time for all kinds of things, but this stuff does kind of stick. So look, this is how easy it is. There it is. And I'm just gonna roll them into a rectangle. So it couldn't be easier. It could not be easier. So I'm rolling it.
rolling.
What's that from? Rawhide?
Yeah, wasn't that the song?
Rawhide. Rolling. Okay, done. So then I'm gonna get my cookie sheet and I'm just gonna throw this onto the cookie sheet.
Okay, talk about that. You have that mat on that cookie sheet again, don't you?
Okay, this is a Silpat. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend you get one because you put it on top of the cookie sheet and nothing ever sticks. And then when you pull it off, you just clean that and you don't have to clean the pan and it's a whole lot easier. I've got this puff pastry dough on here like this. And all I'm gonna do now, because I don't want it to get so puffy, you've seen puff pastry and it like puffs way up and it gets very light and airy, but I don't want it to get that light and airy. So I'm just gonna do this. First I'm gonna outline the edges with a knife, like I'm making a picture frame. And then inside that picture frame, I'm gonna poke it with a fork, like you do with pie crust if you've ever made pie, so it doesn't puff up and like get weird and make bubbles. So I'm pricking it with a fork before I put it in the oven. And I'm gonna pre-bake this puff pastry for like 10 minutes in the oven and then take it out and put the toppings on it and then put it back in the oven to melt the delicious cheese and to bake the asparagus. And literally, okay, it's done. So I'm putting it in the oven.
John, when you did the picture frame, do you cut all the way through or do you try to not cut all the way through?
Can you see it?
Yes.
It's not cut all the way through.
Very nice.
But the pokes of the fork are going all the way through. Into the oven for 10 minutes. Okay, and I've got a shortcut because I already did it. So
magic.
Look, ta-da! Just like Rachel Ray. So it's already done. It's already done. Look. So there's the puff pastry, and I'll show it to you.
I want to see. Did your kids? I want to see.
The light's kind of shitty. So so now you see it didn't really puff up. It's just got this great surface, and it's ready for the cheese. So 2 cups of Swiss cheese, or you can use Gruyere. Did I say that right?
Gruyere.
I always have trouble with that. Gruyere.
I love Gruyere. Yum. That's.
I'm using Swiss, but you can do either. There's a combination you can buy. In fact, I'm going to show you. You can buy a combination already grated at Trader Joe's if you have a Trader Joe's near you. And it looks like this.
Nice. Ooh, I didn't know that. Ooh, I'm going to add that to our Trader Joe's list.
Yep. Okay, so now we're going to put the asparagus on. And fresh asparagus is easy to find in the grocery store. It's seasonal, and it's usually a spring, like early spring thing if you're buying it fresh or if you're growing it. But I think this one's probably from Chile or Peru or something. It's been imported. But nonetheless, it's fresh. And, okay, do you know how to get rid of the part of the stalk of asparagus that is all gummy and chewy and like not yummy that you always end up cutting off anyway or biting and not eating? You go like this. Ta-da! And it naturally breaks at the point where it's fresh versus gross and chewy. So that's how you do it. Now,
easy.
You don't want to do that to every stalk of asparagus. And so what I did was I cut the rest, but I used that sort of as the guide for the rest of the stalks, thinking, okay, well, they're probably already all about the same. So I put the cheese in, and I'm just going to spread the asparagus. And if you want to get fancy, you can go every other, you can like put the stalks of asparagus every other direction. And so I'll show you what that looks like, but you don't have to do it that way if you're in a hurry. This is one of those things that, like, if you have all these ingredients and someone says, hey, I'm coming over, and you go, oh shit, I don't have anything. This is the thing that comes together really, really fast. So I am putting the asparagus on and literally done. Done. So there it is. All the asparagus is laid on top. And I like sort of did it every other so that the spear is facing it opposite directions each time, and I alternated it. And then this is the fancy part, if you can call this fancy. I'm going to take a tablespoon of olive oil and a clove of garlic, and I'm going to mix them in a bowl with salt and pepper. So I've got the garlic and the olive oil, and I've got the tiniest whisk known to mankind.
Love the baby whisk. I love the baby whisk.
Is that what we call it?
Call it.
That sounds like a rap star. Baby Whisk.
That's my rap name, Baby Whisk.
Baby Whisk.
Baby Whisk.
Let's hear you rap, Patty.
No. I can do Hamilton if you'd like.
You can what?
I can sing something from Hamilton.
Okay, no, let's pass. So I have mixed together the olive oil, the garlic, the salt, and the pepper, and I've got my handy dandy little brush, and I'm going to brush it on the top of this asparagus. So I'm taking this brush and brushing it on top of the asparagus so that when the asparagus roasts in the oven, it's going to be all delicious like. Okay, and I'm done. That is it. That is it, you guys. I'm done. So all I have to do now is throw it back in the oven to cook for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Depends on your oven. Depends on how cooked you want your asparagus to be. I kind of like it a little al dente with a little snap to it, but some people like it, all cooked all the way through soft so that they can eat it easily. So I'm going to throw it in the oven, and I'm going to pass to Patty because it's going to cook now, and we're literally going to pull it out in a few minutes and eat it.
Oh, no. All right. So it's kind of cool because John used puff pastry and I'm using phyllo dough, which are kind of similar yet different, which we'll talk about in a sec. First thing I'm going to do for my triangles is melt some butter because, say it loud, everything's better with butter. So I have about, I'm actually making a half order of this recipe today because I made half last night, so I'd have some demo for you. So I'm going to do about a half a cube of butter. I'll throw this in the microwave to melt. And then while that's melting, I'm going to get my puff pastry out. And just like John, I didn't use the Pepperidge Farm puff pastry. I used the Athens phyllo dough. So same deal. I don't know a lot of people who make phyllo dough from scratch. Phyllo actually means leaf in Greek, and it's a very thin sheets of dough that have very little fat. It's made basically with flour and water. So we're going to add that fat big time with our butter. I know that a lot of people are super intimidated by working with phyllo dough. The main thing with phyllo dough is it's more forgiving than you think, but you have to move quickly. So this is like da 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 da.
While you're doing that, I just want to say, Elise, I totally agree with you. Everything is better with butter.
Absolutely. So I'm going to roll. I think Elise and I were talking about that last week. So I rolled out the phyllo dough. Hopefully you can see that. And then the main thing you want to do is make sure you keep it, hate to say it, moist. You don't want it to dry out. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a layer of saran wrap.
So while she's doing that, in an earlier episode, Patty and I had a whole repartee about the word moist. Because evidently that word moist, moist, really bothers some people. So, including Patty.
So, the next thing.
What's your other word?
I'm trying to cook here. Slacks.
Slacks.
I'm going to get my little tea towel that I stole from my daughter's apartment when I went to visit her in New York because it matched my kitchen. And I'm going to get it wet. Just going to get it wet. Going to squeeze it out. I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm just going to have that over the phyllo dough. So now I know my phyllo dough. Now here's a hot tip. Where I live in the desert, it's super dry. I do not make phyllo dough. I don't work with phyllo dough or puff pastry in the summer. It's just too dry here. So this is a great thing to make in the winter. So I'm going to grab my butter. Let's see how we did. Over there. Oh, needs a few more minutes. That's all right. A few more seconds.
What are you doing? You're off camera. I don't see you.
I know. Well, my microwave's on the other side of the kitchen.
This is highly unprofessional.
What? Anyway, so John uses his wooden island, which I'll tell you, I've cooked on that thing a million times and I love it. I'm going to do my phyllo dough right on my counter, right on my beautiful quartz counter. I washed it really clean. I'm wondering, I have no idea what my mother did, like what she did it on. She probably did it on some gross, dirty cutting board, to be completely honest. So let me grab the butter. I got my butter. Oh, now that it's overflowing and really hot. Okay, that's great. Ha! That is so freaking hot. Okay, so now we're going to get rolling. Now we've got to move fast. So I'm going to move my dish towel with my saran wrap. I'm just going to take one layer, one little piece of dough. Super paper thin. You see that? It's really thin. I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to get out my butter. I, too, have a red pastry brush, and I'm just going to brush it on the dough. And you want to go to the edges, and you're going to get butter all over your counter, and it's okay. And I'm just going to brush it across. And if it breaks a little bit, that's okay. This is a very forgiving recipe, and I'll show you why when we get to the other
Are you going to do layers?
I'm going to do 2 layers. Oh, and I forgot. I just realized I did this in the wrong order, but that's okay. Actually, this will work out just fine. So I'm going to do 2 layers, and you'll see different recipes where you can actually, they say you could use oil instead of butter, or you could use like Pam. Both of those things are sacrilege to me. Can't imagine why you would do that. I think butter that's what makes the flavor so nice and flaky. So then I'm going to take another layer, my second sheet, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to do 2. Here's number 2. I'm going to line it up. I don't know if you can see. It's a little tricky. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I line it up. It's very therapeutic and satisfying. But then I realized I didn't mix together my filling. I should have done that first. But that's okay, because this can sit for a second. Again, don't be freaked out by it. If you've never done it, just give yourself some time and play with it, and you'll get it. So a little bit more.
Patty, while you're doing that, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So is phyllo dough the same thing you use to make baklava?
Yes.
Have you ever made baklava?
I have not. And how do you say it? Spanakopita?
I have made spanakopita.
Same stuff.
But baklava is next level. I don't know if I'm up for that. Like, that's a whole commitment.
Maybe we can work up to that. So,
anybody watching, have you ever made baklava? If so, I would love to hear how that was for you. If it was easy or hard. Chef Chris, or if you still are on and watching, let me know. Baklava.
Bailey wants to know. So the filling, which I should have done first. Cream cheese, equal parts cream cheese and feta cheese. And when you see the recipe on the blog, like I said, I'm making a half a batch today, but basically it's 1 block of cream cheese. And so that's 8 ounces plus 8 ounces of feta cheese. And I'm just mixing it together. Super easy. And then once it's all blended, like I said, I'm doing this backwards. But while I'm doing this, I'm going to remember to cover my phyllo dough again. So put my stuff stick together. There we go. So that it doesn't dry out, because it will dry out quickly. But all you have to remember is put your little dish towel on it with your saran wrap. So puff pastry, I told John today, it's called laminated dough. And if you're a baker out there, you probably already know that. It means chilled fat, which doesn't really sound so great. And the cool thing I realized when I was comparing the puff pastry and the phyllo dough is that phyllo dough comes in itsy bitsy layers and you layer it to cook it, right? But the puff pastry comes already layered, but you can't really see the layers until you cook it. So they're kind of like, they're neighbors, but they're not
And
the same.
again, puff pastry dough. I've made croissants before at a sur la table cooking class because I would never be able to do it at home. And it's a commitment, people. If you've never done it, it's a commitment. But it's like folding and folding and rolling and folding and folding and more butter and folding. And you like end up, the folding of it mixes the butter into the dough in a way that no other process can. And that's why you get those flaky croissant pastries.
All right.
Delicious. Anyway, Patty, go.
So that's how long it took. You know, I got to be honest. I thought my recipe was easy. I think John's was even easier. But this literally has 4 ingredients, and it is easy. So there I mixed the feta and the cream cheese. Now I'm just going to take a spoon. It's about a tablespoon. I tried to measure it last night because, honestly, hang on. You know what these recipes I get from my mother? Here's the phyllo dough recipe with literally like six sentences, not even sentences. And look at, can you tell that the paper has just been doused in butter for like years and years?
I think it's so cute that you still have that. My mom wrote like these little recipe cards in her loopy old lady hand cursive writing, and I still have all of those.
Of course. So I'm taking about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, and I'm going to put it in 3 spots across the top of this piece of these 2 layers of phyllo dough. So I've got 3 little blobs, that's a technical term. And then I'm going to take a knife, and this is important. You want a knife that's not serrated. It doesn't have to be super sharp, but I don't think like just a regular knife will work. You want a little bit of a sharpness. And I'm just going to cut it down to thirds. So now I've got my 3 strips with the filling at the top. I'm going to take, let's see how well you can see this. I'm going to fold it over like I'm folding a flag. So I'm making a triangle, hence the name. And then I just alternate like a flag. And if like,
oh, that's cool. So
yeah.
you just go down the strip of dough, just doing the triangle thing the whole way?
Yep. And voila. Easy schmeezy.
Wait, hold it up again.
I will.
Okay.
I'll do another one. So you can see I'm alternating, folding like a flag. Like we should be singing taps. So there it is. Isn't it cute?
So that looks amazing. And I have a question. You could put anything.
Absolutely. So mushrooms, you can make them sweet. You can make them savory. I think the actual traditional does call for spinach. But as I said, my dad was very just a picky eater. So I think there was probably more ingredients, and he said, I don't like those. So my mom said, fine, we'll just use feta cheese and cream cheese. So there's an important, very, very important tip about this. So I'm gonna make another while we're waiting for John's to cook. And the tip is, I literally was making this half batch last night, and my husband said, unsolicited, you gotta let them cool before you eat them. You'll burn the roof of your mouth. I believe I mentioned that last week too. That is the toughest thing about this. You've got to let them cool off or you will burn the roof of your mouth because the filling gets nice and hot, but the outside might not feel so hot. So John's making gestures.
No, Christina was saying putting spinach and feta inside, and that sounds amazing too, doesn't it?
Yeah, or I read a recipe that had mushrooms, anything you want. So while let's see, if you have any questions about this, let me know. Any other questions for you? So people are intimidated. They're afraid that it's going to dry out. They're afraid their little sheets are going to rip. If it rips, it doesn't matter. You're going to fold it all up together anyway. There's plenty of layers. So I'm going to make one more strip. And then I also have the magic of them already possibly going in the oven early. But let's start talking about, should we talk a little about champagne and sparkling wine? Do I think I can multitask and do 2 things at once? All right.
Well, is that my cue to get my sparkling wine?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's a great tip about these. I'm going to make a few more while we go along. But this is a great thing to make ahead of time for that big holiday party you're going to have. And what I do when I make them ahead of time is I put them all out on a cookie sheet. Now, I would either cook them right away. If I was going to cook them in real time, they're in the cookie sheet, good to go. But if I'm going to make them ahead of time, I'm going to put them on the cookie sheet also. Then I'm going to stick them in the freezer. Then once they're frozen, then you can put them in a Tupperware like so.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And they freeze beautifully. And the reason you want to freeze them on the cookie sheet first is so they freeze. Otherwise, if you just put them directly into the Tupperware, they'll stick together. So that's a hot tip. You can freeze them, bring them out, and you can make them a month in advance if you're having a big party. Again, I'm obsessed with this big party idea that's never.
This big party that no one's having, right?
Yeah, the big, huge party that no one's having. Well,
sorry, I interrupted you.
I just said this is kind of like a party, right?
It is.
Parties.
Well, I was telling Patty that a group of neighbors, we normally have like a neighborhood cocktail party where we live on our street. And we were talking about how are we going to do that this year. And so we decided all of us were going to make a different appetizer. And we were going to figure out how we could trade that, like one of those cookie trade things that people do. And then we were going to do a Zoom cocktail party where everyone is in their own home, having their own cocktails. And then they get this kind of little buffet or smorgasbord of cool appetizers. So I think that's what we're going to do this year. And I may make your Phyllo Triangles, Patty, because I can make them in advance.
Yes. Yes.
I love that idea.
Yes. All right. So I made another strip. I'm cutting them in thirds. I have to tell you guys that this is truly a recipe that I remember being a little girl and begging my mother to make these. And everybody counting how many there were and how many did we get. And it is passed on. And I'm remembering my niece and my nephews were here. My nieces and my nephews were visiting. And they were like, Aunt Patty, can you make some more of those? And I was standing right here talking to my niece while I sat here. And then the next day, Cooper, my nephew, Aunt Patty, can you make some more of those? Standing right here, this is the same spot while I chatted with my nieces and my nephews. So fun stuff, easy. All right, let's make this one last strip.
You know what else would be really good in it?
Yeah, what?
Brie, cheese, and cranberry.
Oh my gosh, yes. Have you ever done the brie and the puff pastry? Have you ever done that?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I was thinking of too. Let's see.
I think mine's done.
I bet it is.
Mine's done.
All right, let's do it.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, ta-da.
Let's check it out.
Ouch. Ouch.
Ouchie balla.
Ouch. Can you see? There it is, all done. Look at how beautiful that is. All the asparagus is nice and roasted, and the cheese is all melted, and you can still see the little tiny minced pieces of garlic, and it's all bubbly. And so I'm just gonna let it sit here for a minute to cool before I cut it.
All right. I'm gonna make one more strip.
Ooh, and it smells really good.
Because I think I'm running out of my butter. And I know this isn't the most exciting thing to watch. I love all the ideas of different fillings, though. That's awesome. So let's start talking about sparkling wine. So the reason I wanted to talk about sparkling wine was because of this, again, this great holiday idea I have. And full disclosure, one of the things I like about sparkling wine is you can drink a lot, right? If you're at a party and you can drink a lot of champagne or sparkling wine, you don't get all schnockered. So if you're planning, it's great for day drinking. Yeah, I said it. So by having a daughter who's a sommelier, one of the first things I was corrected was, Mother, I'll say, I'd like a glass of champagne, or let's have that champagne. Mother, that is not champagne. That's sparkling wine. So I wanted to share some of the fun facts about sparkling wine today. So champagne, the only way champagne is champagne is if it comes from the Champagne region in France. So that's a region just like Napa or Sonoma or Bordeaux. So it's kind of a generic term, like Kleenex is tissue. People say champagne, but only champagne from Champagne is champagne. So in other countries, like for example, in Italy, it's Prosecco. In Spain, it's called Cava. And in other parts of France, where it's not champagne, it's called Cremant. So 3 grapes are primarily used for champagne. And there's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Meunier, which I recently learned used to be called Pinot Meunier. So it's another red grape. So if a sparkling wine is usually made with the method that is used in Champagne, as in the region, but that's called, there it is, traditional method or method champenois. But it cannot be labeled method champenois unless it's named in Champagne. So this little bad boy I have here that my friend gave me, not Champagne, not method champenois, but it is Champagne because it's from France. Maybe it is. Oh, anyway, don't talk about that. Okay, so a couple of things about Champagne. Where do the bubbles come from? Why do we have bubbles? All right, Elise already learned a fun fact number one. I'm all over that. So when you hear people say, I'm having champagne, and I get all excited because I think, oh, we're having real champagne. And then I go over there, I'm like, that's not champagne. But that's not to say that there aren't great sparkling wine. In fact, in Northern California, one of the first sparkling wines I ever drank, oh my gosh, I just dropped it on the floor. Oh, well. Was Schramsberg. So if you're familiar with California, Napa Valley, sparkling wine, Schramsberg, Domaine Carneros, Roederer Estates are great California sparkling wines made in the method champenois or method traditional. So where do the bubbles come from? I learned a little science yesterday. So when they make champagne, the first fermentation is just like any still wine. The wine goes through the fermentation in the barrel or the vat or whatever vehicle is being used. Champagne goes through a second fermentation in the bottle. So they put the wine in the bottle with some yeast and some sugars. And through the miracle of science, the yeast eats the sugar and the byproduct, and that's what makes alcohol. And the byproduct of that is carbon dioxide, which creates the bubbles. So this is how you remember it. Yeast eating sugar makes alcohol. I love that. So what else was I going to tell you about it? Okay, so John just held up his glass of sparkling wine, and you noticed it was in a flute glass. And John asked me, well, don't you just normally drink champagne, sparkling wine in a flute? Well, not originally. Originally, champagne was served in a coupe. So this is a coupe, like a chicken. Coupe. It's French, you know. This is actually my mother's beautiful Waterford pattern.
You know, it's French. They have a different word for everything.
Oh, God. Sorry, that was Patty and John flashing back to high school, just like that.
That was Steve Martin. It
was Saturday Night Live, absolutely. So, and then the early 1900s, that's when originally people just drank champagne out of a wine glass. And then in early 1900s, they introduced the coupe, and it was originally meant for champagne. But then they realized because of the wide mouth of the glass, the bubbles dissipated quickly because of the wider surface, and people like the bubbles. So then some very smart marketing person invented the flute. And they created the flute, and the bubbles go up and down and made it very attractive and pretty, right? And the bottom of flute glasses, I tried to check this morning, but I couldn't reach. They have a little notch at the bottom, and that's what makes the bubbles go up and down. And flutes come in all different sizes. This is a wedding present. This is my Waterford pattern. Waterford, I'm Irish, big thing in my house. But this flute has a special story. This is from the Plaza Hotel in New York. And my daughter and I Sydney and I were sitting there having a glass of champagne, and I really, really liked the glass. And no, I didn't steal it, even though I might have a reputation for perhaps borrowing things that I like from, when they bring you that pen to sign the bill, that's a gift, unless they ask for it back. But that's a story for another day. So anyway, I said to the bartender, because I'm not going to rip something off from the Plaza Hotel, I'm not that stupid. I said, hey, do you sell these like in the gift shop? And he said, it was like he knew me. He said, no, but I won't know anything if it disappears. And he passed me one of their beautiful white napkins and passed it over the bar, across the bar to me. And I was like,
wow.
And that's why I got my own Plaza flute. So Sydney says, if you like flutes, go for it, right? Use a flute. But technically, the narrow opening prevents you from getting the full experience because, remember, the aroma is a big part of the wine experience. And the wine glass, so what she recommends and what sommeliers, yay. Yeah, we just borrow, Elise, right? So what sommeliers actually recommend, and you'll experience this if you go to certain, really nice wine bars, is you'll get your champagne served in a wine glass. So, and it won't go flat, and you can smell it. So she says to get the best experience, use a wine glass. But honestly, I have so many fun flute glasses and the stemless ones. Use whatever you want. So she also has some recommendations about, well, first of all, so there's a Prosecco. Anyone who goes to Costco, you might recognize this tried and true bad boy, the La Marca Prosecco. Completely drinkable. Great option. Sydney also recommends Cava, which is the Spanish sparkling wine. And those are fuller bodied. Now I like the rosé. And I said to her, okay, so tell us about rosé. So just like with rosé wine, when the wine comes out, the juice comes out of a grape, it's white, it's clear, whether it's a red grape or a green grape. So with red wine, they get the color and the tannins from leaving the skins on during the process, the winemaking process for a period of time. Same thing with the rosé. All grapes. So the Blanc de Blanc, if you've seen that, the Blanc de Blanc Chardonnay, Blanc de Blanc Champagne is 100% Chardonnay. The Blanc de Noir is the Pinot Noir or a Meunier Pinot Noir blend. And then rosé has to have, it can be the Chardonnay, but it has to have one of those red grapes in it too. So the other things that I see on labels that I asked her about, I was like, what's this, what do I like? Do I like extra brut, brut, sec, demi-sec? So brut is the most dry sparkling wine. Brut is a little less, so it goes extra brut, brut, then sec, which has a little residual sugar, so it's going to be a little sweeter, and then demi-sec, which is going to be the sweetest. So if you like the drier, stay in the extra brut and the brut. Here's another tip. You want to, let's see what she say. Oh, so you want to look for the lower total alcohol content, so like around 12%. And as I said earlier, that makes you able to drink more throughout the day. So that's just some fun facts about sparkling wine. So when you go out, you can ask for a sparkling wine. You can look for a Cava. You can look for Prosecco. But remember, the Prosecco is not champagne. So that's my scoop. And let's see how much time I have on my thing. I'm going to check on my triangles.
Well, then I'll show everybody this now that it's done.
Do it.
And you can see there it is, and it's ready to cut. So I'm going to get me a big knife. And usually when I'm served this, I'm cooking it like maybe as an appetizer, and we're having a group of people over. And so I cut it in little pieces, little squares. So that's what I'm going to do here. So you can see how easily it comes together, how easily you can serve it. And honestly, from the time I started this until the time it's being served, 20, 30 minutes tops. The beauty of it is you can prepare the whole thing in advance. And then when your guests are just about to arrive, just pop it in the oven. So by the time they get in, they put their coats down, you get everybody a drink, and you're starting to gather around. Then you just, slice it up, pull it out, slice it up, and you're ready to go.
Beautiful.
And it smells really good.
I know mine smells so good. Mine need like one more minute.
It's making me hungry.
So the same with this. Once you get the hang of it, again, the first time you work with phyllo dough, it might take you a little longer. Once you get the hang of it, it's assembly line, right? You just knock them right out. So I see mine is starting to dry out. I forgot to put my stuff back over, but that's okay.
Okay, I'm just going to show you one of these So here's a piece.
Let's see.
And and so it's like flaky because of the dough, and cheesy. The cheese is holding the asparagus in place, so it's not like right. And now I'm going to eat it. That is some good stuff.
That is awesome.
You want to bite? My daughter's like lurking in the background. I think so.
Give someone a bite. She's such a lovely, both of your daughters, such lovely girls. All right. Mine are about a minute away. So while we're waiting, should we talk about next week? Are we there?
Yeah, next week, you guys, we're making breakfast for dinner. And I don't know if you ever do that at your house, but when I was a kid, breakfast for dinner was the most exciting day of the week. And I don't know why, but there was just something about how it was so wrong. You know, it was just so off. That was never done. Like breakfast for dinner was silly. But I'm telling you, breakfast for dinner can be the best thing ever. So next week, we are going to be making a delicious baked French toast casserole that is like so easy and so delicious. It tastes like bread pudding, and probably some bacon. And I'm going to show you guys. Maybe I'll make my brown sugar bacon, which is really, really good. It's like candied bacon, which tastes really delicious with a sweet breakfast. So yeah, breakfast for dinner. When I was a kid, we used to have waffles for dinner, and you could have savory or sweet. And my mom would do like this waffle bar where she would have bowls of different things, and you could top it with sour cream and jam, or traditional butter and syrup. Or she would have like other things, like she would have savory. You could top it with sausage and spinach and cheese, and it was like this kind of melty sauce, and it was so good. So that's another idea for you guys. If you're looking for things to do and your family's getting really bored of the same stuff, try a waffle bar. It's really fun.
I have never heard of that. That sounds amazing. We never had breakfast for dinner. My dad probably didn't like it. My dad had Frosted Flakes for breakfast. All right, I'm going to pull mine out. Let's see how they're looking. Oh, they're beautiful.
I think your dad had no taste.
But he did. That's the funny thing. He was spoiled. He just got so spoiled. My mother was such an incredible cook. He also had lunch every day out in the restaurants of San Francisco. So if you're anyone from the Bay Area, the Fiore Italia, he literally had his own table there. All right, so now you can see they are little golden brown, beautiful, flaky, but I am not going to taste them. I wouldn't touch these for about at least 5 to 7 minutes. As good as they look, as much as they smell delicious, don't do it. Hang on. I've had the mistake of putting them out, thinking that, serving them as appetizers, maybe putting them out on a little buffet table, assuming that people would realize that they were hot. No, don't even serve them to your guests until they've cooled down a little bit. So there you go. They are ready to roll. Easy schmeezy.
All right, guys. So we've shown you how to make an asparagus tart. We've shown you how to make these delicious cream cheese feta
triangles.
Yeah, and next week we're going to do breakfast for dinner. So check out the blog. We'll have the recipes up on the blog a little bit later today at twodadswithbaggage.com. You can always watch this episode again on YouTube if you want to see us go through this whole shtick again. And we just so appreciate you watching and being a part of this. It's really fun for us, and I hope it's fun for you too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Okay, everybody. See you next week.